Yeah, somebody sent help. I can't get the Auslander out of my head. It's been playing for 7 days straight in my head. I'm driving Uber. I can't even resist the urge to like not play it. You know, you can't just drive Uber blasting German music.
Yeah, people look at you funny.
Like with a haircut like mine, it's not a great idea.
Yeah.
You know, people like me with short hair. What can I say? I had dreadlocks for a long time, and people just look at you like you're a bastard.
Well, it's like a cultural thing, and there's like a skin color thing.
Yeah.
I guess people are more forgiving with black people with dreads, you know.
I found that to be true. So, and you know, today.
Well, cause you look at a black dude's dreads, and they look clean, they look good. You look at white dude's dreads, it's just trashy, man. Their hair looks all messed up and shit.
You know, I kept mine clean, but I'm gonna say that most people probably agree with you on this one.
Right?
So,
you know,
I'm obligated to not agree.
Because I've tried this dread thing 1,000 times over. And
you tried it a few times.
Yeah, it doesn't work, man. I gotta fucking comb my hair. I got corn silk. That shit needs to be combed.
Well, let's address something right now. White people with dreads. Is it cool to do stuff that you know you're not supposed to? Is it cool to break norms? Because that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about the ultimate edgelordy of edgelord philosophies.
Oh yeah, we have a topic to talk about. Like,
we're talking about white people with dreads, so we're gonna jump right into being edgelords. Like,
right,
this is the automatic go-to edgelord topic.
Oh damn, I wasn't even prepared for this one.
What do you mean you were prepared for this one? We've been preparing for this our whole occult careers. Welcome everybody to the Whole Rabbit. I'm your host, Luke Madrid, and who are you, Andrew?
I am the other guy, Andrew Haskins.
Yeah.
I produced this thing.
And we are what you would call the Whole Rabbit, an institution that doesn't just do a cursory glance over the rabbit.
Or simply scratch it all over its furry body.
No. What we do is we cover the rabbit in shampoo and, you know, scrub it up real good in the shower and
brush its teeth
and, you know, cut a hard part into its haircut and do its nails and, you know, we really take care of the rabbit. You know, we do the whole rabbit. And tonight we are doing the whole rabbit the only way we know how in regards to our topic tonight, which is
Satanism.
There's
Satanism?
Satan.
Ism.
The isms of Satan.
Yeah, Satanism. I feel like we're gonna
stuff, Holmes.
We're gonna try our best to not do what everyone else does with Satanism and like oversimplify it and just tell you like the one avenue of research that we did and then tell you that's all of Satanism, because Satanism has some variety to it. It's like a salad.
Well, okay, like Satanism is like the first of like the multicultural things, because there's like all sorts of diversity in Satanism.
There's tons of diversity in Satanism, man.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, anything you could imagine, there's a Satanism for that. Like whatever you're imagining.
Well, everything's got its devil, so
okay.
you right away everything's got like a bit of Satanism in it.
I mean, like, okay, so you got stuff that like when somebody says Satanism and you don't know nothing about nothing. You've only seen Hollywood movies. You've only browsed the internet and seen what other doofuses are saying out there. So when I say Satanism to that person, they have this immediate thing they imagine, you know?
They like imagine people like killing babies or black cats or some stupid stuff with a pentagram made of blood, you know.
Yeah, you know, tying down the babysitter.
Satanic panic stuff, like.
Yeah.
If you don't know, there was a point where like people were scared of just like random people like fucking their kids in a basement, you know?
Which does happen, but usually it doesn't have like clandestine secret society based reasons behind it.
Yeah, usually it's just a creep with a mental disorder.
Not unless the government's involved, of course.
Yeah, and then it's to actually talk to their freaking DMT.
That's MK Ultra.
Interdimensional demon overlords.
Hey, we might get into that in this one, but no, we're like, well, then some people would probably connect MK Ultra to the Temple of Set through Michael Aquino, because some people swear on their grandmas that Michael Aquino is like the head honcho in charge of all the current MK Ultra.
But I don't think we're there yet.
We're not really there yet. We have to start with Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan.
Yeah, that's the best place to start, because as far as anyone's concerned, that's usually what they think of when they think of Satanism. Or at least if they research Satanism, that's what they get.
So in high school, I sat in front of like two goth kids. I remember one of their names. One of his names was Dustin Coffee.
Oh, you just totally outed Justin Coffee.
I know, he has like the super...
He's been doxxed.
He was like super handsome. He's always talking about all these girls he was fucking and shit. I think he was like in 10th grade, man. But he was like 8 feet tall.
And goth?
Yeah, man.
So he's just like a Frankenstein.
Dude, yeah, he was like some super tall. Yeah, anyway. Like I was in this class when 9/11 happened. So it's 2001. And these two goth kids are talking and they're like, "Yeah, man. Satanism doesn't actually believe in Satan. It's actually just like to be, antinomian to the Christians. They don't actually believe in Satan." I was like, really? That's crazy. Is that true? And then I kind of went looking, and then, you discover the Satanic Bible and Anton Lavey. I remember buying the Satanic Bible from Barnes & Noble and just feeling like the most badassest rebel ever. Like I bought a book and they like looked at me like, "What are you buying?"
It's like, yeah, I'm a Satanist.
Like,
well, okay, but I got that same feeling when I was like walking around with Lieber Newell and Psychonaut in 8th grade.
Well, sure, in 8th grade especially, yeah.
You feel like a badass if you're into occult shit in 8th grade, dude.
Dude, I was reading
like no matter how much of a loser you are, you totally feel like you're cool at that point. You're like, I'm learning magic. Real magic.
I legit read A Brief History of the Universe and the Cambridge Lectures in middle school. I legit read that. So I was into occult stuff too. But now all that stuff's outdated and it doesn't mean anything. Oh well. I digress. So we start with Satanic Bible and Anton Lavey. That's really where you should start if you want to learn about Satanism, because that was really the Satanism that got dropped on America back in the 60s. 1969 is when the Satanic Bible was published.
Naked bitches are the altars.
Yeah, that's important. Naked women are the altars, and
pointy red hoods. Like they did it up. Like it was funny looking. It looked like a costume party. It looked like Halloween on like a Saturday.
Are you trying to say that the Anton Lavey Satanic Church is a LARP?
It's a bit of a LARP, dude. It's a bit of a LARP.
Just to summarize, because we got a lot to talk about tonight. The Satanic Bible and the Church of Satan is basically religion, and especially Christianity has just been a pain in the ass on the world. It's a real bummer, and it's hypocritical, and it's not really worth doing anymore. So let's just celebrate doing whatever we want. And then they just adopt the imagery of the enemy in Christianity, and they sort of play around with the image of Satan, but it's mostly atheistic, right?
Okay, so like you can find like one of their videos online, like it's even on YouTube, unless the algorithm got it. You can get it's a nice little documentary about the Church of Satan, and it's pretty good. It's from the 60s, and it's got interviews with Anton Lavey. They show one of their rituals where they have like a naked chick as the altar with like a snake on her. It's pretty dope. The coolest one I've seen is an interview of Anton Lavey outside of this documentary. He's being interviewed by some news anchor who just loses his shit. Just goes absolutely insane. Just trying to like come up with the worst imagery you could possibly think of. And Lavey's just sitting there keeping his cool with his cape and his gigantic ring, and he's just like looking like the devil, and it's just the funniest thing in the world.
He was an atheist. You couldn't really tell what he told about himself that was true and what was BS, but he's
from another time, dude. He was a 1950s lion tamer. Like that guy was like from a whole other era, carny folk.
From what I understand, it took him a long time to warm up to rock and roll. He was really not about it.
Yeah.
So he was old timey, and
he was a lion tamer. Like, how many people are lion tamers now? No one tames lions. Not on this side of the fucking globe.
This is not the biography of Anton Lavey, but I'm fairly certain he was well read in Aleister Crowley. Pretty sure he was familiar with thelemic thought.
He probably read the Bible a lot too, or had to. Because he totally adopted a lot of their imagery and their vocabulary for his rituals. He just kind of like flipped everything to the inverse.
Now, you never know, like I said, if he's telling the truth or not. But when I was a kid, I remember reading the Satanic Bible, and Anton Lavey said that he used to play the organ at the carnival, and then he'd go play the organ at the church, and it'd be the exact same people messing around on Saturday would come to repent on Sunday, and he just felt like, this is so ridiculous. Of course, that's probably just a story, but I remember that story, so that's why it's a story. So okay, so if we want to really keep talking about this, let me actually read from the Satanic Bible, because why not? It'll give you an idea of what Anton Lavey is all about. I think I opened up right to the perfect place when I first opened the text. So, in recent years, there's been an attempt to humanize the spiritual concepts of Christianity. This has manifested itself in the most obvious non-spiritual means. Masses, which have been said in Latin, are now said in native languages, which only succeeds in making the nonsense easier to understand, and at the same time, robs the ceremony of the esoteric nature, which is consistent with the tenets of the dogma. It's much simpler to obtain an emotional reaction using words and phrases that cannot be understood than it is with statements which even the simplest of minds will question when hearing them in an understandable language. If priests and ministers were to have used the devices to fill their churches 100 years ago that they use today, they would have been charged with heresy, called devils, oft-times persecuted, but certainly excommunicated without hesitation. The religionists wail, "We must keep up with the times," forgetting that, due to limiting factors and deeply ingrained laws of white light religions, there can never be sufficient change to meet up with the needs of man. And he kind of goes on to say that, it's only a matter of time before you update your religions to basically be almost in line with satanic doctrine. Why don't you just drop it now and join me? Honestly, it's pretty brilliant. Like, there's some really good nuggets in the Satanic Bible.
Yeah, the funniest part that I find about the Satanic Bible is at the very end. You find these calls, right? They're like, he calls them whatever he calls them, but they're like straight up from John D. and his workings with like the angels of the freaking Hebrew tradition. And that's the funniest part about like the Satanic Bible. There's supposedly calls in angelic tongue freaking in the back of it.
Well, it's just sort of like...
But it was like non-normal Christian, so he's all like, this is cool, putting it in there.
I mean, it's all about imagery and how it makes you feel, and stuff that excites you psychologically, and stuff that pleases you aesthetically. That's really what LaVeyan Satanism is about. So here's the problem, though.
Well, that's why he did the devil thing, because he just kind of liked the imagery. He's all like, well, the devil's the one having fun, so we're going to be the ones having fun.
It's so simple, it makes a ton of sense. It's just good marketing at the end of the day. And really, he got to create his own magic order where he created all the rules, made all the money, got to get all the girls.
Oh, in fact, he made the Church of Satanism as a money-making operation. Like he said, this whole thing is to make money.
But you know what legitimizes it? Unlike all the other religions and
he's
churches
being honest
and groups.
about it.
Exactly. Because, you won't have to find out, like, oh, yeah, they're really just making a ton of money, or, oh, yeah, they're just having sex. Like, it's not like the Nexium cult or Scientology, where they're raping their members and trying to hide it. Like, no, they're the naked women or the altars. Everyone is consenting, and we're being freaky and having freaky orgiastic rituals and stuff. Like, so there's a part of me that really does have a soft spot for LaVeyan Satanism.
Yeah, it's kind of great. Like, that whole idea of just like, oh, well, we're going to actually be ourselves, and we're not going to feel bad about it, and we're not going to, like, go around and pretend to repent for things we choose to do.
Well, we're kids of the 90s. We were raised to believe that. So, in a sense, we were raised in that LaVeyan...
But we were also raised to believe that, like, the Satanism was behind the tree.
Oh yeah, Satanism is secretly everywhere, behind every corner, lurking to like kill us. And...
Yeah, there's like some sort of satanic cult that'll give you fucking like everything you want if you join it, but you lose your soul automatically.
Yeah, we were raised to believe all that
But
stuff.
also with the 90s, they thought that pedophiles were everywhere.
Pedophiles are everywhere.
Or satanic pedophiles.
In fact, one conspiracy thing behind the Satanic Panic I heard was that there was a leak out of the Bohemian Grove shit of some pedophilia, basically, material had gotten out. It had gone to the court. Basically, I had heard that the whole Satanic Panic was an Illuminati cover-up to be like, oh, we're going to blame all this child abuse and all this ritual magic on the poor people instead of, the wealthy elites who are the ones actually doing it. And that's really the satanic panic. It's just like blaming a bunch of innocent people, you know, and using their children against them and causing a panic and diverting attention away from wherever the real evil is going on, because there certainly is. We're not quite there yet, because we do want to talk about truly evil, like what you think of as satanic societies, not just like Anton LaVey having fun. So we will get there.
But we're not there yet.
We're not there yet. We do want to...
We're just at the surface.
We can't really transition away from LaVeyan Satanism without going into Aquino. Michael Aquino.
And the Temple of Set.
We talked about Michael Aquino once on this podcast. We read pieces of his Mind War document, which basically said in his Mind War document, it was something he was presenting with, I believe, it was a major. I don't remember the name, but it was with a major, and he was presenting a paper to the Pentagon describing a new method for mind control and non-violent warfare, essentially. And it had to do with secretly making all the parties at the table a little bit too comfortable and feeling a little bit too good, so that everyone would suddenly agree to terms and peace would get made quicker.
Yeah, he was like talking about machines that would blast people with alpha rays.
That's really what I should have said.
And then like they would be like, oh, because the alpha rays are hitting them, their brain waves would start producing alpha waves. And that's like the feeling of bliss and cooperation, according to even according to Dan Winter. He talks about that kind of stuff.
You can tell I spent some time reading satanic literature, because everything I'm saying is overly wordy and tortured. I have to just say what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so Mind War was basically about installing these brainwave machines that would make everyone feel pleasant. Like,
isn't that what you want?
So apparently that's what the Temple of Set does when they want to mind control people. They set you up in a room and make you feel good so everyone agrees, I guess.
And cooperates.
So how did that come to be? How did the Temple of Set come about? Well, it grew out of the Church of Satan, because
Michael Aquino was actually one of the lead members writing the Satanic Bible.
He contributed a lot of material to the Satanic Bible and the Satanic Witch and other materials that the church put out.
When they weren't ripping off the yoga of power.
All that credit went to Anton LaVey. So there's probably words of Aquino's within the Satanic Bible that you were going, oh, that's clever. Yeah. But it was really just Aquino. It really wasn't LaVey. So
he's that weird guy with like the big eyebrows. It's like, it's kind of funny.
Yes.
Like if he shaves his head and becomes like a Buddhist monk, that'd be cool.
There was an identity crisis within the Church of Satan, and as a consumer of the Satanic Bible as my first occult book, it's really easy to understand what happened, because as you read the Satanic Bible, it's like, oh, this is atheism, there's no such thing as gods, we should all be rational, we should be modern people, we shouldn't believe in superstition. Oh, also you should do rituals. Oh, also you should do magic. And then it kind of left this like really weird gray area between like, well, magic works, but is it work because of... Anton LaVey is like, well, it works because of psychological reasons.
Yeah, he was all about like the placebo psychological effect of all of it. Like it's only in your mind.
Now, some of that stuff really does make sense. It really does make sense on a psychological level. And it even makes sense. Ever since Andrew suggested we do the channeled messages episode, I have just been mired in channel. I can't stop listening to him. I love it now. So I've been listening to a lot of Abraham.
You got in your vortex?
Got in my vortex, bro. I really hated Abraham for a while, but I'm getting back into it after going and reading like the Hermetic texts and the older wisdom and like kind of cross-referencing what they both say. And now I'm seeing a lot of overlap. This happens to me sometimes, and this happened to me while studying Satanism. We'll get into that later. It has to do with, if there's any truth to following your highest excitement and following your bliss, then some of what of LaVey's Satanism does makes a lot of sense. One thing I remember reading about satanic magic is you do the ritual in a way that satisfies your desire or satisfies your will, so that when you're done with the ritual or done with the ceremony, you're done. You don't need to do it. You don't need to obsess over it anymore. You don't even want it anymore because you've already scratched the itch.
So it's like having sex.
It would basically be, if you want to have sex with Sally, then you make a whole temple to Sally and you have this super awesome masturbation ritual till the next time you see Sally, you're like, hey, what's up? You know, you're not even impressed anymore by your own fantasy. And then next thing you know, Sally is just like crazy about you.
Yeah, but at that point you don't even want Sally, so you just fucked yourself.
Well,
you're fucked either way.
Well, you know, I think you're probably gonna get with Sally, but you're sort of like.
Oh yeah, and if you invite her over, you better deconstruct that temple to Sally before she gets there. Yeah. Otherwise, you are fucked. and not in the good way.
Yeah, you're not fucked, and that's the problem.
Yeah, that's what you're trying to do.
But and then in the Satanic Bible it says like, and if you're just a pimply nerd that just can't talk to women, no amount of ritual is going to get you with Sally. Purely like psychological, and you have to actually go out and try and ask the girl out. She's not just going to like appear in your room. Like, that's not how it works. The whole idea behind satanic magic is to appease the desire and scratch the itch yourself, and then the result will happen. And this is basically in line with the stuff that Abraham and like Bashar says, is like, you desire something, and then that quote unquote launches a rocket of desire, and then to receive it you have to vibrate with your desire as if it's already completed itself, which is a tenet of magic. And then you're not supposed to lust after the result, which in satanic magic you're supposed to have simulated the result so thoroughly that you actually don't desire it as much anymore, which then manifests the desire. So from a magical perspective, that seems to work. That makes sense to me. That means that the people who were atheists, that were non-believers in Satanism, started doing magic and getting results, and then became believers. But then all they had for answers was Anton Lavey being like, well, none of it's real, I just made it up, and we're Satanists, hooray. And they're like, okay, that's not good enough.
Yeah, it's like, no, buddy. This shit works. Why does it work? And some people are like, why does it work? How does it work? Where are these coming from? Like, these things are doing some things and weird shit's happening. Dude, there's so many people with so many stories of just weird shit happening whenever they're doing their weird rituals. That's the one thing about Satanism, and like just like Christianity, you just left asking, well, where's the real stuff?
Yeah, where's the real stuff? And there goes Michael Aquino kind of leading that diaspora from traditional LaVeyan Satanism to start the Temple of Set and establish Setianism. So whenever you hear Setianism or the Temple of Set, that's an outgrowth of the Church of Satan. What's the difference? Well, the Temple of Set is what you would call theological Satanists, or no, theistic Satanists, excuse me. The Temple of Set is what you would call theistic Satanism. They actually believe in a deity behind the symbol of Satan. They believe Satan is mainly a symbol for a greater deity that has an actual theological, theistic basis in reality. So while the Church of Satan is atheistic and just believes it's all psychological, the Temple of Set actually believes in Satan, but they
don't believe in like Satan. They believe in like Set.
Right. They dispensed with what they called the Hebrew antagonist god thingy, which is Satan. They were very aware that if you dress up as Darth Vader, you're not exactly boycotting Star Wars. You're sort of just a character within Star Wars. If you're Darth Vader,
yeah, you're just a fan of Star Wars at that point.
So yeah, so
you're like, oh yeah, Darth Vader's cool, man. Star Wars, yeah.
You can't be anti-Star Wars but be dressed up as Darth Vader. So that was the whole argument against Satanism. It's like, well, you claim to be against Christianity, but your God is like firmly established within like the Christian mythos and the Christian idea. So you really just are like an offshoot of us, and that was true. So Aquino was like, okay, we're not doing that anymore. We're now worshiping the Egyptian god of storms named Set. But they got really, really into this whole idea of Set as this deep, esoteric, natural principle, much in the same way that Aleister Crowley presented Horus and Nuit as natural principles that could speak and become animate through language and as a force in the world. In the same way, Set was capitulated as a force of nature, but more specifically, classic pretentious satanic fashion, Set symbolized the anti-nature aspect of nature.
Well, they were weren't they natures?
Neters. So
neters. Okay, so this is like the root of the term nature, which is neter, which is like pertaining to like divinity or like God or life force, or something to do with like the order of the universe. So anything with a nature pertains to the order of the universe. So when it's in its nature, means that's kind of the divine order of how it acts.
Correct. So nature is animate and alive in that perspective, and it's spoken of very early in Setian literature that the statues and the monuments and the things of Egyptian culture weren't merely just there to symbolize certain forces or gods. They were meant to be able to house them energetically, to be outward expressions of something that was larger.
Oh, like they do in the Hindu culture, where they
even in Catholicism,
they'll make a shrine that like embodies the what is it, the presence of the deity.
Right,
and so you go there and you get like a crazy feeling, you know.
And they do that for Mother Mary also, in different places where I don't know what you would call it, the statue or the image of the goddess contains the actual goddess itself temporarily until it's like cast into the river or whatever. And then she's back being in heaven as a part of nature itself and all that.
So they just keep drowning this one character?
Well, I don't know.
See, that's why I don't get the Catholics. They just keep like trying to kill off their deities and their saviors, and then they're like, oh yeah, these are the guys, let's kill them. We're supposed to do it. Like, they're more satanic than anyone.
Well, we'll get there.
They have like the god, like the Hebrew savior on a post, you know, walking around with it.
I mean, it could be because like
look what we did, we got this trophy.
In the back rooms they could be doing some super secret Illuminati card games with the planet Saturn, but we'll get into that because that's a thing apparently. Well,
so we were talking about Set in nature.
Yeah, so Set in nature. So Set is one of these neuters, and a neuter is basically a conscious force or aspect of nature. If Horus is the life force, then Set would be the aspect of awareness that's aware of itself, or consciousness itself, divorced from the other forces. This is similar to the apple in the garden, and to the Setian is the same thing. It's the gift of self-awareness and, as they like to say, isolated consciousness from the rest of creation. Because as they describe it, and this is somewhat accurate, most religion is centered around the idea of dissolving one's ego, or at least softening one's ego enough to where the observer merges with the observed and separation is annihilated between the self and the greater self. So one merges with God. Well, the left-hand path is a strengthening of those walls between the self and God in order to gain a greater amount of individuality and sovereignty. And so in that regard, Set sort of represents that to the Setian.
That's all laid out in his opus. What did Aquino do? He got the Book of Coming Forth by Night.
It's
transcribed by Michael A. Aquino. And that's very important. It's transcribed. He didn't write it
because Set wrote it.
Yeah, he like channeled Set when he sat down one time, and he just like wrote out this really, really cool sounding thing, and he started passing it around amongst his people, and then
they really just accepted it right away.
Yeah, it sounds cool. It sounds like something that like you would get if you channeled a spirit. This totally sounds real.
Yeah, it sounds like your run-of-the-mill occult trying to run away with all the power in your lineage type of thing where...
Oh, this god granted us the true lineage or the true mages or the freaking whatever.
Well, here's why I say that is he makes a connection to himself and Aleister Crowley pretty immediately, where he attempts to overshadow all of Crowley's work, especially the Book of the Law, by saying, well, this is what Set says.
He was confused by the Book of the Law, therefore he said that it's confusing.
Sure.
You know?
I mean, everyone's confused by the Book of the Law, right?
Yeah, it sounds cool.
Yeah, sounds right. What Michael Aquino transcribed was called The Book of Coming Forth by Night, which is almost like a joke on the Coming Forth by Day, the classic Egyptian text. But yeah, the Book of the Coming Forth by Night is Set speaking through Michael Aquino, and what Set says in the text is that his anti-self, which is Horus, manifested to Aleister Crowley and initiated the Age of Horus, which created a lot of chaos and madness.
In World War I and
II, and ultimately would manifest itself through Anton Lavey and then later Aquino.
And it closed up at the Age of Aquarius.
Basically, it says that, like, Set and Horus energies got together, and now Set is, like, the big top guy, and Aquino is, like, the top mage, and Lavey is, like, the old mage, and...
LaVey's like John the Baptist of their religion.
Right, so, you know, instead of Aleister Crowley establishing himself as the prophet of his own religion of Thelema. Now you have Michael Aquino establishing himself as the new priest of the new age of Set, which he's conveniently having received himself and is now in charge of.
Well, okay, that's funny because
This is just what occult orders do.
okay, here's the thing: is there was a student of Aleister Crowley known as Frater Akkad, and he wrote a bunch of workings with Enochian about his exploration through John Dee's crazy magical system that we'll have an episode on at some point because that is its own topic. But he talks a lot about how he's like affiliated with this thing called Set. Everything that Aquino wrote, spot on, like dead accurate to what Frater Akkad wrote about Set and Horus, and how there was like a slip up where like Horus was going to initiate the new Aeon but decided to turn back to the old ways, and so Set had to move forth and continue towards the new age or the new Aeon, so it became the Aeon of Set.
Yeah, and didn't he have a whole thing about the Aeon of Ma'at as well?
I don't remember reading that.
I thought that Akkad tried to usher in the age of Ma'at to overwrite Crowley in the same way that Aquino would later. Like, this is a thing that happens, like, they're like, oh, Crowley ushered in the age of Horus and everyone believed it. Well, since, now there's this new age that, that's updated the age of Horus, because I can do that,
Well, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, now we all can do it. See, that's the problem. That's why you got to keep this shit under lock and key, because if you give it to everybody, now everyone's making the age of... Like, Anton LaVey changed his freaking calendar to, like, the age of Satan, So, like, everyone's just keep, like, making their own freaking calendar. Like, Christians made their own calendar. And then, like, the Muslims have their own calendar. Everyone's got their own religious calendar. It's, like, the start of their universe. It's really weird. I think it's weird.
It's basically like establishing your own cult. You have to you have your own creation story, and your members are super important. You have the holy book.
And I guess you have to make yourself infallible by being like, yeah, I'm the chosen person.
That's the Temple of Set and the Church of Satan. And then you have other groups that are, if you want to get into like, okay, well, what are the satanic groups that like do violence and are extreme? Well, you got like the Order of Nine Angels, which is a strange, supposedly left-hand path occult group. It's affiliated with neo-Nazis, but also is associated with like Hermetic and neo-pagan elements. They have some weird...
Yeah, these are like what people thought was going on during the Satanic Panic.
I don't know. They're like a terrorist organization, basically. They're a political like terrorist organization. I think they believe in human sacrifice. So that's spooky. I feel like we would maybe need to do like a whole episode on them specifically, because it's a very strange thing to like. I don't know, like the ONA is strongly critical of like the Church of Satan and the Temple of Set. They don't really believe that those people are like truly satanic. Well, I guess now we have to like go a step deeper than Aquino if we're gonna keep going. How far are we into the episode already? Well, I guess we have to go a bit deeper if we're gonna get to the real evil shit that we wanted to talk about. Because Order of Nine Angels basically sounds like a terrorist organization, but we want to talk about like the Illuminati, man. We want to talk about, people doing rituals and castles and, sacrificing kids to Moloch and stuff like that. Like, what's that Satanism about? Because
yeah, man, what's that stuff about? Why don't you tell us?
Okay, well, I guess we got to go back to Gnosticism, because Gnosticism posits that the reality is a lot like the Matrix, that we were in the garden as slaves. We didn't know our true nature. We didn't know each other. We might not have even been permitted to have sex. We might not have been able to procreate. And then something came along and was like, you guys are slaves, right? You didn't choose this. You know that you could create of your own life force. You could do that, right? And then we're like, what? We're slaves? That's crazy. And that's the Gnostic interpretation of the Garden of Eden, and the serpent is a benevolent force that came to free us from the evil demiurge.
Well, yeah, because they believe the serpent was Christ.
They believe the serpent is Christ. This is a philosophy I'm sympathetic to. This is related to that philosophy, except instead of going with the Christ or the serpent, which is heretical and Luciferic enough on its own, you go the other direction and you join the demiurge. And that's where we get into the game of Saturn, which is I learned about the game of Saturn on the Higher Side chats. Peter Mark Adams talks about it there on THC October 29th on the 2017 show. And I definitely suggest listening to it.
Watch it with your nose.
Yeah, watch it with your nose, man. Smell it. Get a good whiff. Because it stinks, man. The first time I listened to it, I was kind of scared. I did not like it.
Sounds cool. Like, I only heard a part of it, but it still sounds pretty cool.
Well, here's what
kind of makes sense with a lot of, like, the new agey things and a lot of what Alex Jones has to say.
Well, he looks into this old tarotchi deck called the Game of Saturn. The deck is called the Solabrusca Tarot.
Solabrusca.
From the Renaissance.
Yeah, Solabrusca.
Basically, if you believe Peter Mark Adams, this is a very dark tarot deck that doesn't get a lot of research and belongs to a tradition that exists in the shadows amongst the elite, especially the elite associated with the church and the Byzantine thrust of, the old empire, the papal families, and all that stuff.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because this is kind of will lead into our actual tarot episode.
Okay, well, this is some dark stuff. So supposedly, Mark Adams found this tarot deck that is used amongst the elites, and it tells a story of dark sorcery where dark astrological alignments, outlines to dark rituals to help you keep reincarnating into the same bloodlines, rituals to allow yourself to be possessed of draconian spirits. And the whole idea is to corrupt your soul in a specific way to maintain your position in your bloodline and to keep exerting your evil draconian control over the rest of the world. Basically working for and aligning yourself with the demiurge in the aspect of Saturn.
So you're becoming an agent.
You're becoming an agent, yeah.
In the Matrix.
In the Matrix. You're pledging yourself to the machine that is Satan/Saturn. That's the thing, is it's pre-Christian.
Oh no, that's that Cypher bullshit. That's what Cypher was doing.
It's not like, oh, we want to be Satanists because Christianity is oppressive. It's like, no, we want to align ourselves with the forces of darkness
that control the universe.
That control the universe and the world, and we want to run the institutions that make decisions for the rest of everyone else, and we want to leverage these positions of power for our own benefit. And we want to do it in a way that we're so karmatically bonded to our family and to our co-conspirators that we keep reincarnating with them. So that's some pretty dark stuff.
Same people over and over again through like the same generations, like just keep swapping in and out of each other.
So there you have it. That goes along with a lot of the Disclosure 2019 stuff where supposedly we're being told that the elite families are just that. They're families that incarnate into the same lines over and over, and that they're loyal to the spirit of Saturn or the spirit of time, which also corresponds to structure and to institutions on the planet, and that they leverage these institutions for their own benefit, basically. Worse yet, Saturn is not just like, oh, it's just Roman Saturn. It goes back to a lineage of gods that correspond in the same way. So Saturn's not just Saturn, it's also Baal, Haman, it's also Moloch. And so it just sent chills up my spine, because if you're going to believe Mark Adams, then there is a secret religion in the elite that goes all the way through the Vatican, basically, and through all the upper echelons where maybe some of that Adam Jones, is that his name? Alex Jones, because I was just talking about, yeah.
No, he talks about like real world stuff, but like not like
I can't even get Alex Jones's name right.
Yeah, dude. Like he's the man.
So, if you've ever seen the Alex Jones Bohemian Grove video, it looks like a bunch of elites gathered around worshiping Moloch.
Yeah, it's some weird stuff.
And then the cremation of care ritual is all about burning a cadaver to Moloch. And who is Moloch?
Is it a cadaver? Because I've heard like they do some weird things where they switch out the bodies and they put like a real person there.
Well, of course
at the
that's
very end.
Of course that's a conspiracy. It's terrifying to think about.
Yeah, dude, it's horrible.
Because they play the sound of someone screaming when they, burn the supposed cadaver.
Or do they?
Or do they?
You know?
So yeah, go look up the Bohemian Grove video. That's not going to be hard to find on YouTube.
Might be harder to find.
So there appears to be some evidence for that. And the way Moloch was worshipped back in the day, it was like a giant like cow that was a giant metal furnace that they would...
Oh, no, that was a completely different thing.
No, that was Moloch.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That was Baal Hamon. That was Moloch. That was the god that they were worshiping then and they are worshiping now.
Well, I thought there was a statue of a god that they would, like, slay the babies in the bowl in the god's hands, like in Moloch's hands.
Oh, it's worse than that.
No, because that was a whole other thing where they put the guy inside the brass bowl.
No. This is no, because this is it's symbolized even that way in Metropolis and in other classic Hollywood movies. Moloch is definitely a giant furnace, and it's holding its hands out in front of it.
Got that part right.
Yeah, and they basically, like, you would have to sacrifice your baby to it, and they would do this all day and all night. They'd be sacrificing babies one after another to this giant furnace, and the mothers would have to, like, watch, and if they cried or screamed out or anything, then the elites wouldn't pay them for the child that they had, purchased against their will, to be sacrificed. And eventually that's what they believed led to the downfall of their society, is that the elites stopped sacrificing their own children and kept, substituting them. And so eventually the elites did start sacrificing their own children eventually, but it still led to the downfall of their society. And so Moloch and Baal Hamon is like a persistent figure of evil in our culture. But it's kind of gone, well, I'd say it's gone a little bit underground. Like, if you were to throw that symbolism out there in a movie now, it wouldn't be as universally recognized as it was in the early days of cinema. People just aren't as religious and they're not as tapped into that. So, like,
they don't even learn about it they don't even know why they don't like it.
That's more for the people who would know, with like a top hat on a pyramid with a little mustache. Like, those people who know that symbolism would know about Moloch. But anyone who doesn't know about that meme,
oh yeah,
probably should learn about it.
Yeah, that's its own episode.
So there you have it. There appears to be, and I didn't buy the book. I didn't read the book, but I did listen to the podcast. There appears to be a secret tradition that the elite practice in alignment with the demiurge, which for all intents and purposes is the devil.
Well, like for what we know from, like, we can piece it together because we know a little bit about magic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like the same stuff, only devoid of any sort of morality.
Right.
So they're just using, like, hermetic magic just in, like, a super duper evil way.
Instead of liberating one's soul, you're karmatically binding yourself to other people through evil.
Yeah, so what they're trying to do is they're trying to basically, like, on the Buddhist wheel, they're trying to stay at the very top of the wheel and then, like, drop back down and then go backwards so that they go right back to the top again.
Yeah, like doing stuff to mess with karma to always be on top, basically. No matter how evil or much they have to mess up their soul to do it.
Well, because it's going to end. The game ends at some point.
So, yeah, at some point.
Like, right, that's the whole Day of Judgment idea. Is that, like, some point it's going to end, but we don't know when. Right?
I guess so.
I don't know.
It'd be fun to talk about Luciferianism because... Man, you go on the internet and you start trying to find any Luciferianism, and it's just garbage. Like, it's not really that good of info. No offense to, I don't want to talk crap on a bunch of people that, like, all they do is curse people. So I'll just say this: a lot of the Luciferianism I found online, if you just Google Luciferianism and you get into it, most of it's pretty lukewarm, watered down.
Is that the, like, Michael Aquino kind of stuff?
No, Michael Aquino's...
Or not Michael Aquino, Michael Ford. He's like, sorry if I'm dissing Michael Aquino.
I liked a lot of Michael Ford's artwork. That stuff looks really alluring, but it didn't really do anything for me personally.
Yeah, stuff like seems like, oh yeah, I've heard this before. I've heard this all before.
A lot of that more like even a more watered down version of what Aquino did, and like trying to say like, oh, this is real,
and they're just trying to market to people you know?
And because Lucifer's marketable. But, the best thing you could probably read about Luciferianism is Freedom is a Double-Edged Sword by Jack Parsons. And I believe it was first published in 46. So it predates the other satanic literature by, 20 years or more. And
But it's a good one.
yeah, it's a good one. And the reason it's Luciferian is because, well, it's related to the current that Aleister Crowley put out there with Thelema. So Lucifer is a personification of the divine feminine to Jack Parsons. Is that confusing to you? Well, I guess it's a little bit confusing. I mean, what does that mean? Lucifer is a divine feminine. Well, here's the connection I keep bringing up is there seems to be an obvious thing where when Christ came, he was, he had a lot to do with love, He was all about love thy neighbor, love me, love yourself. And that love energy sort of replaced all the old laws which were put forth, in the Old Testament. And so Christ is, in some Gnostic circles, like we said before, personified as the serpent, as a god of love sent to free us from, the chains of bondage from the demiurge. Well, in this instance, Lucifer is personified as the winding serpent of sexuality, which is the greatest expression of the universal life force in human life. And so basically what Jack Parsons says is that the church has always leveraged sexuality as a way to control us, and that what the church has done is mostly hold us in a holding pattern, held us back, and that we should all seek to be liberals. Basically, it's a treatise on liberalism.
Well, like an actual classical liberal, like a British liberal, not a
modern,
not a libtard,
not a modern. Yeah, this is like actual liberalism, and what's great about it is, well, it's pretty brilliant. It basically says that freedom is a double-edged sword. You have, on the one end, the freedom, and the other end, the responsibility. And you have to have both. And it says that you can't just tell other people what's right for them. Unless they're encroaching on your freedom, you really don't have a right to tell them how to live, like under any circumstances. And they don't have a right to tell you how to live. It basically says that people were born to be free. It's hard to articulate, I think.
Unless you're born to be wild,
Yeah, that's what it's about. You were born good, and that your sexual impulse is natural. That's a big part of what's said. This is probably my favorite part about freedom as a two-edged sword. Of all strange and terrible powers among which we move unknowingly, sex is the most potent. Conceived in the orgasm of birth, we burst forth in agony and ecstasy from the center of creation. Time and again, we return to that fountain, lose ourselves in the fire of being, unite for a moment with the eternal force, and return renewed and refreshed, as from a miraculous sacrament. Then, at last, our life closes in the orgasm of death. Sex, typified as love, is the heart of every mystery, at the center of every secret. It is the splendid and subtle serpent that winds about the cross and coils in the bloom of the mystic rose. The sexual perversion of Christianity becomes obvious when it is realized that the Holy Ghost, the Sophia, is feminine. The very tetragrammaton, Yod He Vav He, means Father, Mother, Son, Daughter, and asserts the splendor of the biological order. How could life proceed from a strictly masculine creation? What miracle could possibly be superior to the miracle of copulation, conception, and gestation? In the corrupt and demonic Jehovah, the priesthood blasphemed nature in order to perpetuate a tyrannical and superstitious patriarchy. Women was insulated and affronted with the calumny and immaculate conception. Then, by this mystery mongering, premium was placed on moral and spiritual sterility. This sublimation of sex urge has been the basis of the power of the church and is the source of much psychosis rampant in the modern world. And so there you have it. That's Luciferianism in a nutshell. I don't really think much else needs to be explained about it, but it's the idea that the Holy Spirit is feminine and that the image of the deity is not just male and female having sex, but male and female having sex, conceiving, gestating, and reproducing itself as another pair, and that this is holy and sacred and a reinterpretation of the whole formula of what it means to be sacred and holy. And
biological essentialist.
Well, like, if you want honestly, what I just read in Freedom is a Two-Edged Sword, it made more sense than anything I ever read about in Satanism.
Yeah, and it's a little more in that cooler sort of Luciferian tinge.
And it's not just like, oh, sex is good. It's like saying, like, no, sex is the sacrament from which all things like come and go. Like
Jesus was conceived through God sex.
Yeah, basically, and that all things are. And so instead of just like, oh, we get to be naughty and do what we're not supposed to do, it's completely dispensing with all that and being like, no, this is what it means to be alive. This is what it means to be what we are. We are what we are. Deal with it. So I think you can tell I'm a bit partial to the Luciferian Jack Parsons perspective, but that's kind of our overview on all the different satanic perspectives. I think we wanted to do like some Fnord hunting in the Ninth Gate. I think we could probably do that real quick to... How deep are we?
We got like an hour going so far, so...
We got a little bit of time.
Well, it's like 9 o'clock. We got work in the morning.
So maybe we should do the Ninth Gate Fnord hunting later. Another episode. Man, I feel like we barely touched the surface.
Yeah, Satanism's pretty... we just kind of like did an overview of it all.
About Satanism especially.
Yeah. We did like a project on Satanism for a class of like... And it was like cultural anthropology, and it was all about witchcraft and their belief systems and like different belief systems around the world and mythology and shit.
And it sort of detonated my life because I got a little too deep into it, and there's a lot of conflicting ideas in Satanism, and so when you're experimenting with all those ideas, it just gets messy. But I do want to wrap up the episode with some theory and some ideas from that time period of my life, because we really just scratched the surface, so let's just wrap it up as deep as we can, because we at least owe that, I think, to the audience, because... I don't know, that was a pretty good overview of what Satanism is, but like, let's tie it all together. What does it all mean? What do we think about Satanism? How do we put a bow on it and say, this is what we like, this is what we don't like, this is what we take, this is what we don't take? Do you want to do your little bit on that, and then I'll do my bit, and we'll close up the show?
Okay, so like I did my thing on satanic ritual, and once you realize what a satanic ritual is, you stop like, well, at least like the LaVeyan idea of the satanic ritual, and not so much of a Christian idea of a satanic ritual. Basically, the LaVeyan satanic rituals, you get to choose what your ritual's about. You get to choose the aesthetics.
Which is great. I love that.
And the theme of your ritual.
Yeah.
So, if you want to do, like, unicorn ritual, you do the unicorn. If you want to do a leprechaun ritual, you do a leprechaun ritual.
Yeah.
You want to do a rabbit that lays eggs, dude, you do a rabbit that lays eggs.
You do whatever you want, buddy.
Yeah, you do whatever you want, buddy. Like, if you want to dress in red, white, and blue and shoot fireworks off, that is cool. You want a cake with your name on it, with the celebration of you.
That's especially satanic.
Yeah, that's especially satanic.
They say that in the Satanic Bible, they say that the biggest satanic holiday is your own birthday.
Yeah, because it's all about you, buddy.
And celebrating you and what you want. So that's what's cool about Satanism. So we like that, right?
Yeah, like a satanic ritual would be like, okay, I'm going to dress in Japanese clothes and watch a samurai flick while eating sushi, you know? And you'd be like, through this ritual, I will, you know, somehow become more versed with Asian culture or something like that. You know, you make up your shit, or like you'll meet an Asian girl. And you know, when you're going to get sushi, you just happen to talk to one of the waitresses. Who knows?
To LaVey's credit, a lot of the modern New Age is just satanic AF. Like a lot of New Age thought, Think and Grow Rich, being in the vortex, following your highest excitement, all the positive thinking, you know, walking...
Shape-shifting reptilians.
Like, all that positive thinking stuff is so LaVeyan satanic. I feel like maybe we should have told people that in the beginning of the episode to get people hooked, because it's totally true, man. Like...
No, that's the good stuff they gotta stick around for. Only the people who got this far get to hear that stuff.
Because this is what drove me nuts, and when I did the original research, is because I stumbled upon the Gospels of Thomas, which is part of the Nag Hammadi, which is uncovered, you know, in the 40s.
Well, okay, you were taking two different classes at the same time, so you made like...
I made my own education out of it.
Yeah, you made your own education.
That's
but
what you're supposed to...
You're doing like a Gnostic Christian perspective of Satan in like in a class about Satan. Or you did like
Right.
Lucifer.
I went a little too deep.
It totally did not go over well, especially given the fact that like we were being judged super critically because those people did not want to hear about Satanism.
They didn't, even within the
Dude,
construct
they
of the
hated it.
class.
I mean, there was this super hot chick we were taking this freaking we were doing a group project with on Satanism, and like they marked her down, and she was really good. She did all
she did incredibly, yeah.
Yeah, dude. Like, I had this joke when we were doing it that, like, we'd put a jinx on one of the other groups doing one of their projects.
Well, I'll read some of the things that...
Just by doing our projects.
Okay, so...
That was my satanic ritual. Was
I didn't do that.
We were going to write a report about Satanism, and through it, we were going to, like, curse the other group in their project.
I don't know why you were so hung up on this idea because like
because it was the greatest satanic ritual. Because I was learning about satanic rituals, so I'm like, okay, this is the ritual. We're gonna write a report.
I saw this as a friendly rivalry because I was going through a divorce and a breakup with a bunch of hippies that were my friends.
I just wanted to.
It was all about love and light. So I just sort of embraced the darkness and I was like, all right, maybe all this spiritual stuff is BS because. If this is what I should have said in the class, Satanism is the spirituality of anti-spirituality. Satanism is the spirituality of if it's religious, if it's spiritual, it's probably somebody blowing smoke up your butt, and you should just.
Oh, you want to go to heaven? Take some drugs.
Yeah, you should just
call me in the morning.
Yeah, you should just live your life and have fun with it, and don't let anyone tell you what to do. And I wish I had just said it easily, but. Here's my problem is I was reading the Gospels of Thomas alongside Anton Lavey, and my brain sort of imploded because I realized some of the truth of what they were both saying, and what's funny is the modern day positive thinking stuff sort of dispenses with all the dogma and just gets right to the point. But this is what it's all about. If you read the Gospels of Thomas, here's like the first thing it says. And he said, whoever discovers the interpretations of these sayings will not taste death. So it's basically saying, like, if you understand this, you will live forever. And then the second thing it says, Jesus said, those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. And when they find, they will be disturbed. When they are disturbed, they will marvel and they will reign over all. Which is kind of a strange thing to say.
After all they have reigned, they will rest.
And, like, the 10th saying that Jesus said, I have cast a fire upon the world, and look, I'm guarding it as it blazes.
Trump.
Okay, this one's good. Jesus said to his disciples, compare me to something and tell me what I'm like. Simon Peter said to him, you're just like a messenger. Matthew said to him, you're like a wise philosopher. Thomas said to him, teacher, my mouth is utterly unable to say what you were like. Jesus said, I'm not your teacher. Because you have drunk, you have become intoxicated from the bubbling spring that I have tended. And he took him and withdrew and spoke 3 sayings to him. When Thomas came back to his friends, they asked him, what did Jesus say to you? Thomas said to them, if I tell you one of the sayings he spoke to me, you will pick up rocks and stone me. The fire will come from the rocks and devour you. Meaning... So at this point, it's already starting to pick up some crazy, like, what? Like, so Jesus was telling his disciples stuff that would have got him killed. He was saying stuff that was firmly against the religious order of the time, which is interesting. And he also says that once you discover the truth, you'll be, like, totally shocked. This is like a very rock and roll, almost Anton Lavey vision of Jesus to me. Then the very next thing he says is, Jesus said to them, if you fast, you will bring sin upon yourselves. If you pray, you will be condemned. If you give to charity, you will harm your spirits. When you go into any region and walk about in the countryside, when people take you in, eat what they serve you and heal the sick among them. After all, what goes into your mouth will not defile you. Rather, it is what comes out of your mouth that will defile you. So that to me is the wisdom that is hidden in practical Satanism, and it's not what you indulge yourself in that will hurt you, it's how you compose yourself and how you relate to others that will be bad for you and be bad for others. And that it does nobody any good to fast, to pray, to do all this religious mumbo jumbo when all you have to do is attend to the people that are right in front of you. And so there was there's like a very strong anti-religious, anti-spiritual part of Christ's spiritual message, which to me is like, okay, if you consider the fact that Christ came to shake things up and be like, no, I'm the manifestation of your religion's prophecies, like, you know, I am the law and the way, like he himself.
He says it's the truth.
The truth. Yeah. So he
didn't badmouth. He didn't say he was the law. He's talked about the law.
Okay, sure. Maybe I'm going a little far here, but
I mean, he said he was not there to like make new laws or to overthrow the old laws. It's not what he was doing. Like, there's a lot to Jesus that people don't understand. And I want to know what the hell he was teaching those people, because we don't get the teachings.
Well, that's what I'm saying is when I was reading this, I was like, oh, so even Jesus himself was an antinomian. He was a rebel. And in 39, Jesus said, the Pharisees and the scholars have taken the keys of knowledge and hidden them. They have not entered, nor have they allowed those who want to enter to do so. As for you, be as sly as snakes and as simple as doves. Yeah, Jesus is like a little rebel himself, and he's sort of saying like, you need to take all this religious spiritual stuff and just shove it, basically. There's something that's even deeper going on here.
Well, you need to take the dogmas and all your laws and all your bullshit going on and like
dispense with it.
You need to follow the spirit of the law rather than the word of the law.
And so Christ here is preaching this like radical individualism in a way. He's teaching like, think for yourself radically. Go seek the secrets of wisdom for yourself, which has a lot of overlap with what the Satanists were saying. So in my defense, like I almost had a mental breakdown trying to analyze this, and this is partially how I've come to accept some of the philosophies in like from these channeled messages from Abraham or from, you know, Daryl Anka or, you know, from Ivan Teller. It's this idea that we sort of have our own built-in guidance system. We all sort of know what's good for us, and if we align ourselves with our emotions and if we're honest with ourselves and honest with our emotions, we can tap into that guidance system and move ourselves to a higher and better place. It doesn't require a lot of religious mumbo jumbo, really. And I mean, in times when they're just like hacking off dicks and hands and bleeding people to death and stoning them to death for saying the wrong stuff, yeah, it probably took a lot of, you had to be really careful about speaking the truth. But nowadays, when you can just post pictures of your butthole on the internet, it's just best to be yourself.
Now that they won't kill you, they'll just try to like ruin your life. I mean,
yeah,
it's not quite like death, but you know, you still have to live your life.
What's great about freedom as a two-edged sword, it just straight up calls out the reactionary right and then the fake liberals on the left, like 60, 70, 80 years before it happened. You know?
Oh, dude, Orwell was talking about those people.
I believe in God, but I don't really ascribe to any one religion, and I feel that the mysteries of Luciferianism probably contain the most truth for me from what I've read, because it incorporates liberalism and radical individualism. To me, that encapsulates the patriotic spirit and experiment of America and individual liberty and democracy, and I still believe in those things. So I align myself with those ideas and those forces without having to plaster myself with too many symbols or associate myself with too many groups or even take that shit too seriously. But yeah, just to be open and honest, like I sympathize with a lot of what Satanism has to say while also accepting that it's basically a refuge for a bunch of dumb edgelords half the time, you know. And then the other half of the time it's like a lot of really cool people doing like cool shit. So it's give or take. I definitely wouldn't want to do any of those Saturnian rituals or be involved in those bloodlines at all. That's like dark and evil, and that's just like, who wants that? They do.
It'd be a cool deck to have.
I don't even want the deck. I'm like that spooked out by it. I don't even want it.
I don't know why people are so spooked out about decks of cards.
Dude, Moloch is scary.
It's a total scary fucking thing.
Like the way you're supposed to feel about Darth Vader, that's like no, don't come this way. Like, no, I can't handle this evil. Yeah, it's too evil.
Darth Vader's like, he's tacky now.
He's tacky now, but like what he symbolizes is like pure fear. Like,
well, okay, so if you go back and watch the old Star Wars, you could totally see like, oh, dude, he looks like a fucking scary space samurai.
Yeah.
But after Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and
yeah,
he's just sorry. He's kind of sad. He's just emo now.
Yeah, you know, if he dressed as a giant owl, I'd be creeped out. I guess.
He's neo emo.
Neo emo. Well, there's so much more I want to talk about Lucifer and Satan and Satanism, but that's our overview of Satanism. There's Satanism for all levels, and I guess to wrap it up, there's even a Satanism where you don't even really have to be a Satanist. You just get to like put on stage performance art and be like, you know, a radical liberal.
But
and
there's like totally some heavy metal bands.
We're not even...
or like black metal bands that are like heavy into Satanism.
That's true.
And they do like really weird fucking shows.
And there's philosophies like the joy of Satan, which is like, oh, Satan's a good guy and God is a bad guy and all the bad guys are good guys and like
good guys are bad guys. Woo!
And that's really all we need to say about it.
Yeah.
So
it's like, no. The hero is Palpatine.
Yeah,
because he comes back in episode 9.
Because he's, I don't know. So there you have it, folks. The whole rabbit did Satanism. There's good Satanism. There's bad Satanism. There's fun Satanism. There's stupid Satanism. There's terrorist Satanism. There's elite Illuminati Satanism. And there's a happy little Jack Parsons Luciferian brand of Satanism that's just like hiding in a tiny little corner over in the 40s.
Yeah, and anything that's not like Christian, you could consider Satanism.
That's what, yeah. So some people, anything that's not Christian is Satanism.
Yeah, like there's some folks who believe there's like anything is fucking Satanism, like Tai Chi is Satanism.
D&D is Satanism.
Yoga is Satanism.
Harry Potter is Satanism.
So like you see how like Pokemon is Satanism.
I want to do a whole episode on Pokemon being
I want
devils.
to do, yeah, dude, Pokemon Satanism. That's pretty cool. Except for the fact that like you just hear that like everything is Satanism. When everything's Satanism, nothing's Satanism.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of The Whole Rabbit. I feel like we barely scratched the surface, and
I'm telling you, dude, we gotta start like right then, and then just do like 4 hours. 4 hours, just.
It sounds like
just jabber-jawing about.
We just need to be better.
You just need to be better.
I know.
I just
take
need
responsibility.
more time.
Nobody wants to listen to us talk that long. All right.
Dude, I don't even want to listen to us talk that long.
And I'm going to have to editing this effing show.
The funny thing is I don't even want to talk about the subjects after we talk about them.
Yeah, Satanism is a little bland.
It gets a little bland, dude. You study it and you're like, oh, this is kind of lame.
I read from the texts on the show a little bit, so if you've never read any satanic literature, you got some samples of it, I guess. Well, that's us being all depressed. I guess
Satanism leaves you depressed.
Satanism made us all depressed, and we're gonna go put on eyeliner now and cry ourselves to sleep
listen to goth music
after we edit the show. Listen to Sisters of Mercy and like masturbate in our own tears and look at pictures of ex-lovers that
and we're gonna wear black and white on our faces.
Got married to people that make real money.
Get awkward and headbang.
And then sit around in a coffee shop or maybe a D&D place and then lecture people about magic who are only half paying attention and then post it on YouTube as a monetized video that maybe gets like 10,000 views or something.
Yeah.
You know? Man. Well, yeah, thanks everyone for listening to the episode about Satanism. Eat carrots, shoot lasers, and...
you haven't told them where we can find it.
Oh, yeah, you can find us everywhere at the whole rabbit podcast at gmail.com. And then you can find us on Instagram at _whole_rabbit_. That's our Instagram account.
Yeah, we got underscores.
And then Luke Madrid at Gmail. You can write me there. I don't check the podcast email quite enough. I
don't check it at all.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, the Google Play Store, YouTube.
The Google Store Play.
Yeah, you can find us on the Buzzsprout, which is just a gateway to other platforms. And you can get us on Spotify as well. I don't know if I said that. Yeah, Spotify. You can go to Spotify and find us there. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Praise Lucifer. Eat carrots. Shoot lasers.
Yeah, what he said. Except for the first part.